Well, the program is really trying to aim at people who have been perhaps team leaders in the recent past, or are still sort of team leaders, and who are moving up or being groomed to be moving up in the world to really move into more strategic positions where you essentially move from being a subject area expert or in charge of a bunch of subject area experts to positions that are closer to, if you like, the overall strategic perspective on the organization as a whole. This particular program has a different philosophy from quite a few of the other ANZOC programs, which tend to be fairly focused on content, academic, cognitive styles of teaching. This one is really aiming at encouraging participants to become more reflective. So it is a much more, I suppose, reflection-inducing environment where we question them, where we encourage them to look at themselves, where we do not necessarily provide them with how-to models of leadership behavior, but where we really want to invite them to take time out of what normally are very busy lives, where there's constant time pressure, constant pressure to deliver, and really take a step back and contemplate not just the course of their careers, but also the possibilities and the responsibilities of leadership, as well as the constraints and, if you like, the dangers and the pressures of leadership, and really provide them with an environment where they can share with their peers some really frank experiences and candid discussions about some of those real hard challenges of being a leader that people are looking up to and that people want solutions out of. And one of the things we try to get people to understand is that leadership does not necessarily amount to having all the answers and coming up with a big vision. In fact, a lot of leadership can also be exercised by giving problems within the organization back to the people that are closest to them and break through the kind of hierarchical reflex that if we've got a real issue, the leader's got to solve it. Well, that's sort of old thinking in many ways. The kind of leadership we want to encourage is a leadership that actually empowers others in the organization to become problem solvers and innovators and carriers of a vision as well. The program is delivered in two residential modules, each lasting a week. We have capped participation in the program at 40. There's two core facilitators, myself and Robbie. And what we try to do in those 2 weeks is to have a mixture of, if you like, encounters and learning formats. One very important component of the way we deliver the program is to create ample opportunity for peer feedback. So we split people into groups groups of 4, 5, 6 people max, where they really, in those groups, find a home of peers where they can talk about and get really candid and structured feedback about their own performance in real leadership situations in their job. So that's a very important component. Another important component, which is quite a confronting experience for people when they first encounter it, is the so-called circle of truth, where we really put people literally in a circle from which there is no escape, and where we ask some hard questions and get people to really own up to some of the challenges of leadership. We also, as a part of this program, leave the conference setting and go on field visits. We have a thing called the live case, which amounts to us approaching a particular organization or a group of organizations that has a real issue that they struggle with at the moment. And we basically offer the services of the group, these participants in the course, to come and have a sort of outsider look at what goes on with respect to this problem. So we divvy up the group in subgroups, and within the space of about 24 hours, they will conduct a very large number of interviews and on-site visits at the coalface, where the problem really sort of hits the road. And in those very intense 24 hours, they are invited to make sense of this problem, to look at the problem from multiple perspectives and integrate their findings in a set of thoughts that we then give back to the leaders of the organizations that have invited us in. So this is a very intensive learning format, but it is one that our participants hugely value, because they get to look into other people's messes for a while in a sort of safe and controlled environment, and try and play a constructive advisory role. The ability to take time out, even in a highly time-constrained environment, but to pay some attention to noticing what is going on around you, but also noticing what is going on inside you as a leader. And if we can somehow inculcate habits of reflection in busy lives of professionals, we would be very, very happy if that would be the case. We'd like to draw people's attention to a couple of post-heroic notions of leadership, particularly two. One, the idea that leadership is something that can be distributed, that can be shared, and that can be collaborative, and that is not necessarily dependent on the personal abilities and traits and competencies of just one person in the top role, so to speak. The other thing we really like to give to people is this notion of adaptive leadership, where leaders empower others to create solutions, and where the role of leaders is really to turn people's attention on a problem, close off all the possible escape routes, to deny that that problem exists or to postpone addressing it, but then give them the space and give them the opportunities to try out solutions and to work through the real hard questions. What we are very keen on, and have successfully done in the past, is to bring in quite senior people from not just inside the public service, but let's say civil society at large, and create relatively small group encounters where we encourage those leaders not to come in with a set-piece story, but really make themselves available to people who want to question them about their experience of leadership, their career path, how they dealt with really hard issues, how they keep themselves sane, and how they keep themselves on top of things. And those encounters have been extremely valuable. So to the extent that we use outsiders as speakers in our program, it tends to be these kind of mentoring type sessions, rather than set lectures, delivered by subject experts. People can go to plenty of other courses that do that already.